In our last episode, we talked about the human desire to transcend the profane spaces of our lives and enter into the sacred spaces that are inexplicably intoxicating and beautiful. But for most of our examples, we discussed solitary experiences, examples that were a person's interactions with themselves or with the grandiosity of nature. Today, I'd like to discuss another source of that grandiosity: each other. After all, this series is about the power of contemporary art, and such a discussion wouldn't be complete without the swaths of great art that are made great by the communities and relationships that are fostered as a result of it. Our best art can not only unite us in its enjoyment, whether it be by way of a concert or in discussion with our peers, but it can explain the emotions we're feeling about one another better than we can say them ourselves. It can outline our desire for that intimacy in beautifully complex ways. Beautiful because the best of our art allows us to transcend into those sacred spaces. Complex because the best artists of today are able to acknowledge the struggles of navigating a modern world in which such desires are repressed and difficult to fulfill. The seminal work I keep returning to is Andre Aciman's 2007 novel and its 2017 film adaptation, Call Me By Your Name, a story I've found to be one of the best examples detailing the innate human desire for love. The story follows Elio, a 17-year-old boy living in southern Italy with his parents on summer vacation, and Oliver, a student intern for Elio's father, who stays with Elio's family at their home for 6 weeks. The two fall in love, but their most vested efforts are required before they're finally able to pull away from both looming stigma and hopeless fear. When they finally do push it all aside and fall into each other's arms, the two dissolve any boundary between them. They're inseparable for the remainder of Oliver's stay, and every scene the two share is a continued practice in vulnerability, all of which goes to further Aciman's theme: complete and utter intimacy. Elio writes,
I wanted no secrets, no screens, nothing between us. Little did I know that if I relished the gust of candor that bound us tighter each time we swore, my body is your body, it was also because I enjoyed rekindling the tiny lantern of unsuspected shame, cast a spare glow precisely where part of me would have preferred the dark. Was our intimacy paid for in the wrong currency? Or is intimacy the desired product no matter where you find it?
As Aciman writes, this desire for intimacy with another is so directly coupled with the potential burden of shame. Whether it be contemplating the decision to reach out to hold a date's hand or saying the words "I love you" for the first time, the potential for shame is always looming over us. There's the need to feel that oneness with a person, for them to be an extension of ourselves, but at the same time, the potential shame and the fear of overstepping, of being rejected, it can cause us to withdraw, and can even move us to run from our feelings for another. And in a world where the ability to reach out and foster relationships is spread so thin, the fear of overstepping can be a real point of anxiety. Through our social media, what we believe to be an intimate relationship is only a swipe and a few chat bubbles away from being sprung into existence. Coupled with this newfound ease of entering a relationship are the countless exogenous factors an outrageously connected world brings. And as such, the art of today reflects a wholly new perspective on the anxiety surrounding intimacy, a perspective that, until the latest technological boom, was never really found in art before. Frank Ocean's 2016 album Blonde might be the generation's defining album for this very reason, because it somehow manages to portray the gorgeous dreamscapes of intimacy with a stark, spiritless, and often disgustingly dull reality of love in our era. We can first look to the minute-long interlude titled Facebook Story, which features one of Frank's friends, talking about a relationship he was a part of that was cut short by an argument over Facebook.
And she wanted me to accept her on Facebook, and I don't want it because I was like in front of her, and she told me like, accept me on Facebook. It was virtual, means no sense. So I said, I'm in front of you, I don't need to accept you on Facebook. She started to be crazy. She thought that because I didn't accept her, she thought I was cheating. She told me like, it's over, I can't believe you.
This story from Sebastian can act as a sort of example of what can stand in the way of the intimacy two individuals in a relationship can hope to achieve in the modern world. How can we blame the girl in this story for finding value in her online persona? Everyone in the world is trying to make their way onto this platform, and every day it becomes more difficult for a romantic life and social media to be mutually exclusive. To go on a date with someone without a social media profile would be considered irresponsible, and because of this, the unconditional, uninhibited, and therefore intimate relationships between two people are no longer so intimate. One's expected to flaunt their happiness for the other by way of social media, and if they don't, there seems to be a failure of love between the two. There are more requirements in love today, more constructions of society that serve to dilute the beauty of the experience. Later on in Blonde on the track Good Guy, Frank explains the emotion he harbors when meeting a guy who texts nothing like he looks. The rituals of getting to know someone over text and then learning them all over again in person is almost ubiquitous across modern romantic navigation. Who knows if the man on the screen will be the same as the one sitting across from you at dinner? On one of the album's most gorgeous cuts, Frank pours out a conflict between shame and intimacy from his own life on the song White Ferrari.
Left when I forget to speak, so I text the speech, less the speeds, text the speed, yes. Basic takes its toll on me eventually, yes. On me eventually, yes.
Despite having a whole speech prepared full of his emotions for this person, Frank's anxieties get the best of him and his mouth stays shut. When the person is gone and Frank's opportunity is past, he pulls out his phone and texts out what he wanted to say. Basic takes a toll on him as he does what is easier. He falls back on the crutch that has now wounded him further. We want the requited love that we see in our favorite romances, but these experiences don't match up to reality when we have to deal with the world social media has broken for us. But of all the work I've come across in the last decade trying to address this struggle with intimacy, there's been one project that stood out as especially poignant. In 2016, the indie rock band Car Seat Headrest released a re-recording of their 2011 project, Twin Fantasy. Track 6 on the album, Bodies, has been regarded as one of the best indie rock anthems of the last decade. Bodies addresses the anxiety that comes along with giving yourself up to someone, with lead singer Will Toledo opening the track with a riff on some words he didn't mean to say.
That's not what I meant to say at all. I mean, I'm sick of meaning, I just wanna hold you.
Will is 29, but when Twin Fantasy was first released, he was 19. He's a product of our current generation. He's been brought up in a world in which every text is mulled over, sent to friends for peer review, returned with edits, and then mulled over again with concern of how this will affect one's social status, one's appearance in the eye of the receiver, and one's relationship with oneself. So when he sings, I mean, I'm sick of meaning, he's letting go of that external, prosaic quality of himself. He's allowing himself to be clear to his partner. He wants to hold them, and the words he's saying aren't going to express himself clearly. The whole song is full of these little adjustments of words that Will has just said. He begins with "those are," but he quickly shifts to "you got," adjusting his own words mid-sentence, furthering his shyness and his lack of confidence in himself. As the song progresses, Will continues to explain his lack of comfort in his body. That is, until the bridge.
Well, so what? We're young. We're thin, most of us. We're alive, most of us.
Will is confronted with the idea that none of his fears matter. He's young and he's alive, and the fears he's harboring are constructions of his mind, making it difficult for him to have what the deepest part of him desires. We see the full extent of this on the next line, where a brilliant crescendo of guitars and the buildup of a dramatic drum performance meet. His He's made aware that what he has with this person shouldn't be clouded by the irrelevant fears of social standing and embarrassment. Will begins dancing unencumbered, body on body, with no regard for all the fears he may be facing. He sings the refrain one more time, but now he's shouting it, but he doesn't care, because he doesn't care how he sounds or what he might look like. With their bodies entangled, talking, meaning, it's all irrelevant. Will's admission here can be viewed as the very culmination of how we solve our generation's conflict with intimacy. It's excess that threatens to get in the way, but it's the disregarding of that excess, the awareness, but acceptance of our limited time here that will lift us up from it. Will asks us not to worry about exogeny, no, because when our bodies do fall apart for the last time, it won't be our social media profiles that stick around. It'll be the songs we sang and the hands we held. Perhaps we should look to Will's choice of title for the song as a sort of guidance to what exactly it is that makes this sort of love possible. We're individuals looking for other individuals to understand us and be with us at our most intimate. Will does not choose the title to be the correct spelling of bodies, as in B-O-D-I-E-S. He instead picks bodies as in B-O-D-Y-S, as if to emphasize that it really is two individuals being brought together. One body and another body, each separate, but still bonding over the other, over the desire to be vulnerable and intimate with a loved one.